They're trying to put Brittany Watts in prison for having a miscarriage. But this story, there's so much more. So many of the topics that I talk about a lot, that my mutuals talk about, intersect in this story. Before I get into her story, how it is symbolic of a much bigger problem, not only in reproductive health and reproductive rights, but particularly for Black women. But before I get into that, a couple other factors are also a big part of this story. Felony abuse of a corpse is so ridiculous for many reasons. All she did was not bury or cremate the remains of her miscarriage, which she is not required to do under Ohio law, despite the fact that women miscarry in toilets all the time. But they're like, the issue isn't that the child died, it's the fact that it was put in it. First of all, it's not a child. That is not a child. Stop using that language. It wasn't a baby either. A fetus. It said it was put in a toilet large enough to clog up the toilet, left in the toilet, then she went on with her day. I'm sure it happened just like that. She was like, la la la, time to get back to work, go have fun. It is like, I hate these people so much. And as it's pointed out, by seeking to indict her on this, you're implying that anyone who miscarries at any point in the pregnancy, retrieve the fetal tissue, whether they're at home, at work, at school, a restaurant, or another public place, preserve that tissue until it can be disposed of properly, which Ohio law doesn't require anyone to do. We know it's not really about this, right? This is about scaring women. We want to talk about corpses. How about the fact that men get away with graping dead women regularly? Like this dude, 100. And I want you to pay attention to the language. The language in and of itself. In 2023, have schmecks. All of them. They all say, literally just Googled it really quick. All these came up. Have schmecks, have schmecks. It's not grape, it's schmegs. You cannot have schmegs with someone that's dead and can't give consent. It wasn't just that one person who did over 100. This dude too, and this dude too, and this dude was a security guard. This just happened. He too was having schmegs. Having schmegs. Let's not forget that one of the main reasons why morgues don't like to hire men is because this is such a problem. But it's not just morgues. It's literally anywhere, including hospitals where there are nursing homes, anywhere where there are people who are very vulnerable, but especially women and girls, whether they're alive or dead, they can't be trusted with men, because men will try to have schmegs while they're asleep or literally dead. That wasn't enough. I mean, even The Daily Show just had this doctor on not too long ago, one of many doctors who can't be trusted. Okay? And if all that wasn't enough in terms of how dangerous hospitals, or most places in general, but hospitals, places where women are supposed to be taken care of, are dangerous, this was just in 2020. Even when we go in for a different surgery, they are still having doctors in training giving pap smears and examinations on reproductive organs of unconscious patients. They're not even required to get our consent. And a lot of these exams, they're literally like, you go in for something totally different. And by the way, while you're under, let's teach some young doctors how to do a pap smear. Shh, she'll never know. She's asleep. One school said 90% of their students had done this. And Jessica Valenti, one of my mutuals, I'm going to tag her. If you want to know more about this story, Brittany Watts, or this, she wrote this about these pelvic exams and how they are grape. Just like when you fork dead bodies, that's grape. Follow her newsletter, her Substack for more information on this. Just so we're clear, hospitals and places like that are not safe for women in general. But for Brittany and most Black women, they're not safe for literally anything, but especially childbirth or anything around pregnancy. For one reason and one reason alone, racism, particularly misogynoir. You can blame it on, systemic racism. Of course, it's in medical training, medical schools, but it's also personal. One of many things that I have learned from Black women, especially in the last couple years when I've been hearing so many stories about this, that nurses, particularly white nurses, are some of the most dangerous people in their lives. It's really easy to blame it on systemic racism, but this is an interpersonal thing too. Everybody has to undo this stuff on an interpersonal level too, because even if they rewrite textbooks and even if they change the way everyone is educated, what we're taught, it still is in here. All it takes is one nurse and a woman can end up dead. In fact, it's a nurse who called the cops on Brittany. There was no reason for those cops to be informed, and it was a nurse who did it. I tag a couple mutuals who did videos on that. I would put money on it being a white nurse who did that. So Brittany not only had a miscarriage, she was robbed of the opportunity to focus on healing physically and emotionally, and arrested, now may go to prison, despite the fact the coroner's office themselves said the fetus was non-viable and it died in the womb. It had nothing to do with the toilet. She had been to that hospital 3 times in 4 days trying to get help for vaginal bleeding. She was diagnosed with all of this. So it's one of the biggest things they're arguing about is that, she went there. They're like, this is non-viable. This fetus is not going to ever live. There was no question about that. But they're like, she checked herself out. She kept going back to the hospital for this serious condition, and they're mad that she checked herself out. Then she went back to the hospital after miscarrying, and then the hospital staff notified the police. When CNN reached out to the hospital and asked them why they notified the police, because that's weird. It's your business. You had no reason to notify the police. All of a sudden, they have no comment. For patient privacy, blah. You don't care. You literally violated her privacy by calling the cops. These cops went over to her house and broke apart her toilet. Mind you, there are 21,000 stillbirths every year. 1 in 175 pregnancies. I realize that is a crazy statistic. This is happening all the time. Now we're fighting over what a corpse means and how you treat a corpse. No problem with men having schmegs, literal dead people. All of a sudden, it's like this precious little corpse. Let's get to the real problem here. There's the problem of Black women in the United States facing death on a regular basis when they're pregnant and just going to the hospital, but especially when they're pregnant. It's a really great article if you want to read this. Black women knew that with all this crap that was happening before, if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and it will, we were warned. Of course, it's always going to be Black women who were the first to feel the impact of that. Even what we know about the prison system, how it's forced labor all over again. No surprise that a Black woman would be facing prison, something completely out of her control. So Boston University has done this amazing study. I think it's the biggest in the country. Black women's health and the crisis that it's in, how it's basically all tied to racism, particularly anti-Blackness. I highly suggest this read. It talks about way more than just pregnancy. About diabetes, blood pressure, cancer, all kinds of things that boil down to racism. Not genetics, not lifestyle, but literally racism. Just this year, in July, this whole story came out about the United Nations. Now we know, right now we are losing respect for the United Nations. They're a forkery in genocide. The United States just gets to veto whatever we want. National Security Council, whatever. They do some good things. They did this enormous study, not just on the United States, but all the Americas. And they concluded systemic racism and sexism in medical systems, not genetics or lifestyle choices, are the main reason why Black women face more complications and death. This is regardless of your income, too. Despite medical schools literally teaching people that Black women's nerve endings are less sensitive, they require less anesthesia, that their blood coagulates, I don't know if I'm saying that right, faster than white women. Blah, 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 lies, lies, lies. It's literally racism, period. Even though the United States, compared to the other Americas, has a lower death rate, although it's high, not for Black women, even famous Black women almost do die because of pregnancy. And they're wondering why she went home from that hospital.